Why would God reveal to a mortal man what even the angels fear to see? In the ancient days before the flood, there lived a man named Enoch, a man so righteous that Scripture says he walked with God, and one day he was simply no more, for God took him. But what happened in those hidden moments when heaven pulled him from the earth? According to the ancient Book of Enoch, he was not merely taken away. He was shown the very architecture of the universe itself, the 10 heavens, places of unspeakable glory and unrelenting terror, realms where angels sing without ceasing, where rivers of fire flow endlessly, and where prisoners hang in darkness awaiting a final judgment. It is a vision so overwhelming that most believers today have never even heard the full account. And yet, it was entrusted to a single man. The journey begins in the quiet of an ordinary night. Enoch, at rest in his home, suddenly feels a weight upon his chest, a heaviness that presses down into his very soul. Fear grips him in a dream so vivid it feels more real than waking life. His eyes fill with tears, and he cannot understand what this vision means. And then, without warning, 2 radiant beings appear. Their faces shine like the sun, their eyes burn like fire, and from their mouths comes a sound like rushing flame. Their garments glimmer like purple cloth woven with gold, and their wings gleam brighter than polished silver. Enoch trembles in terror, his face pale with dread. But the beings speak. Have courage, Enoch. Do not fear. The eternal God has sent us. This day you will ascend with us into heaven. Imagine that moment. You are called not only to leave your family, but to step into realms no living man has ever walked. Enoch hastens to summon his sons. With urgency in his voice, he warns them, "Do not turn from God to worship false gods. Remain steadfast, for I do not know where I am going." And then, as quickly as the dream began, the angels lift him up on their wings. Clouds swirl below, the earth fades into mist, and Enoch is borne toward the first of the heavens. But the story is not one of endless light and glory. For while the first heaven reveals wonders, the second unveils a horror that shakes the very soul of this righteous man. A prison of angels, bound in darkness, crying out in despair, waiting for a judgment they know cannot be undone. And here lies the unsettling truth. Even the angels are not immune to rebellion, nor spared from punishment. If this is what Enoch saw in just the second heaven, what unimaginable revelations awaited him in the realms above? The angels carried Enoch swiftly upward, and in a moment the world he knew had vanished. Below him, the mountains shrank into shadows, and the earth became a circle floating in a sea of mist. Ahead stretched the gates of the first heaven, vast and shining like bronze hammered by lightning. The air itself trembled as the gates opened, and Enoch beheld a realm unlike anything on earth. Here were the storehouses of creation. He saw chambers filled with snow, great mountains of frost and hail reserved for their appointed seasons. Vast rivers of water sparkled like crystal, hidden in heavenly vaults. Clouds, like living beings, drifted in obedience to unseen commands. Angels stood as guardians at each storehouse, their faces calm, their garments gleaming, holding keys of fire in their hands. The voice of one of the radiant guides explained, "These are the treasures of the Most High. At his word, snow descends, rain waters the earth, and hail strikes in judgment. Nothing in creation moves apart from his will." Enoch gazed in awe. The first heaven was not merely a place of beauty. It was the machinery of the world, a reminder that every drop of rain and every flake of snow is held in God's design. And yet, this was only the beginning. The angels lifted him further, and the brightness of the first heaven faded into the shadows of the second. At once, the air grew heavy and cold. Darkness pressed in on every side, and the sound of weeping rose like a mournful wind. Enoch trembled as his eyes adjusted to the gloom. Before him stretched a prison vast and terrible. Here were angels, once glorious beings of light, now bound in chains of fire. Their faces, once radiant, were pale with despair. Their wings drooped like broken banners, and their eyes burned with endless regret. They cried out to Enoch, begging him to intercede, to plead with God on their behalf. But the angelic guides shook their heads. "These are the watchers who abandoned their place, who defiled themselves with the daughters of men. They are held here until the day of final judgment. The sight struck Enoch with horror. He had always believed heaven to be a place of pure glory, but now he realized the truth was more complex. Even in the heavens, rebellion had taken root. Even among angels, sin had brought chains. As Enoch looked upon their torment, his heart ached with fear. If beings of such majesty could fall, what hope was there for fragile mankind? Yet his guides reminded him, the justice of God is perfect. His mercy is extended to the faithful, but his judgment is sure for those who rebel. Enoch bowed his head, overwhelmed. In the first heaven he had seen the wonders of creation, held in balance by divine order. In the second, he had witnessed the ruin that comes from defying that order. Light and darkness, glory and despair, side by side within the heavens. The angels lifted him higher still, and Enoch's thoughts burned with questions. If the second heaven contained such dreadful visions, what greater mysteries and terrors awaited in the realms above? Enoch rose higher, leaving behind the cries of the second heaven. The air grew warm again, filled with a fragrance unlike any he had ever known. Before him opened the gates of the third heaven, radiant with emerald light. What he saw next left him breathless. A garden vast beyond imagination, overflowing with life untouched by decay. Here stood the tree of life, its trunk broader than a palace tower, its branches stretching across the sky. Its leaves shone like sheets of gold, and its fruits sparkled like clusters of stars. From its roots flowed 4 rivers, one of milk, another of honey, a third of fragrant oil, and the last of rich wine. They cascaded across the garden, watering every plant, every tree, every blossom in abundance. The earth beneath Enoch's feet glowed with colors no human tongue could describe. Birds of radiant plumage filled the air with song, and the voices of countless angels rose in harmony. The guides spoke softly. This is the paradise prepared for the righteous, those who walk in purity before the Eternal One. Here they will find eternal inheritance, rest from their labors, and joy without end. Enoch saw souls clothed in garments white as snow, their faces serene, their eyes shining with peace. These were the saints awaiting the final day, sheltered in the garden of God. Their laughter was like the sound of flowing water, their praise unceasing. He realized, this was the hope promised to the faithful since the beginning of the world. Yet before Enoch could rest in the beauty, his eyes were drawn to another place, hidden beyond the garden's borders. His vision darkened, and he beheld a stark contrast. Here lay a terrible realm, a place of punishment reserved for the wicked. The ground was frozen with biting frost, yet rivers of fire wound through it, scorching everything in their path. Groans and cries filled the air. Here, angels of wrath carried out judgment without mercy. Those who had lived in greed, deceit, and violence tasted the fruit of their own deeds. The guides explained, just as paradise holds the inheritance of the righteous, so this place holds the reward of the unfaithful. For the eternal God is just, and his justice cannot be mocked. Enoch's heart was torn between awe and dread. On one side, the joy of everlasting life. On the other, the unending torment of those who turned away. He understood that these visions were not given only for him, but for every generation, to remind mankind that every choice has an eternal weight. As he gazed upon paradise once more, Enoch thought of the generations to come. Would they seek the way of life, or would they fall into rebellion? Would they strive for the inheritance of joy, or be consumed by judgment? For a long moment he stood in silence, the fragrance of the tree of life filling his senses. And then, once again, the angels lifted him up. Paradise faded from sight, the rivers and blossoms dissolving into mist. His heart longed to remain, but the journey was far from over. And as the third heaven disappeared beneath him, Enoch shuddered. If such glory and such terror were revealed here, what greater mysteries awaited in the heavens above? The angels did not carry Enoch higher just yet. Instead, they turned his eyes once more toward a realm of dreadful vision, a place hidden from human sight, but preserved in the order of heaven. What he saw next made his heart quail within him, for it was a place prepared not for reward, but for punishment. The landscape was torn between extremes. On one side, mountains of burning fire rose into the heavens, their peaks glowing like molten metal. Rivers of flame surged downward, consuming everything in their path. On the other, icy winds howled through caverns of frost so deep that even light seemed frozen. Between fire and ice, souls were cast, their cries echoing like thunder across the abyss. Enoch saw angels appointed over this place, their faces stern, their voices like iron. They moved with relentless precision, carrying out judgments decreed by the Eternal. There was no hesitation, no pity. Their task was to enforce justice, and they did not waver. The guides whispered to Enoch, "Here are kept those who turned their hearts away from God, the liars, the oppressors, the ones who devoured the poor, who delighted in violence, who practiced witchcraft and sorcery, who filled the earth with blood." The sight was unbearable. Men and women of all nations writhed in the flames, then were seized by frost, only to be thrown again into fire. Their suffering never ended, for this was the place of waiting until the final judgment. Enoch's thoughts turned to the world of men. How many walked the earth with pride, convinced their actions bore no consequence? How many mocked righteousness, believing judgment was but a myth? Yet here, in this terrible realm, he saw with his own eyes the truth no one could deny. Every deed, every hidden thought, is weighed before the throne of God. And still, amidst the torment, Enoch perceived something more. It was not cruelty that held this place together, but the justice of the Eternal One. As unbearable as the vision was, it testified that God's holiness cannot be violated without consequence. His mercy is deep, but his justice is sure. The angels turned to Enoch. "You have seen paradise for the righteous. Now you have seen the place of punishment for the wicked. Between these two lies the destiny of all mankind." The words pierced him. He realized the visions were not given merely to satisfy curiosity, but to warn every generation of what awaits beyond the veil. Paradise was real, punishment was real, and the choice between them belonged to every soul. At last, the angels lifted him again. The cries of the punished faded into the distance, and a new light broke upon his eyes. The realms above awaited him, realms not of torment, but of cosmic order and celestial wonders. Yet Enoch's heart trembled, for he knew, if judgment was so severe here, what mysteries would unfold in the higher heavens. The angels carried Enoch upward once more, and suddenly the shadows of punishment gave way to a radiant expanse. Before him opened the fourth heaven, where the very rhythms of the universe were kept in perfect order. The sight was overwhelming. Vast gates of fire, through which the sun entered each morning and departed each evening. Beside it, another gate through which the moon passed, waxing and waning according to command. Here, angelic hosts stood as guardians of the celestial bodies. They bore fiery staffs, and their faces glowed with the brilliance of starlight. One commanded the rising of dawn, another the setting of twilight. Some directed the paths of the constellations, ensuring that the stars moved in harmony across the heavens. The air rang with hymns, choruses of angels praising the Creator whose word sustained the cosmos. Enoch's eyes widened as he saw creatures of indescribable beauty, phoenix-like beings, their wings shimmering with scarlet and gold, their voices pouring out songs so pure that all creation seemed to vibrate in response. These were keepers of the heavenly fire, symbols of rebirth and endurance. Their song marked the rhythm of seasons, the turning of years, the cycle of life and death upon the earth. The guides explained, "All things move by the decree of the Eternal One. The sun does not rise of its own will, nor does the moon set apart from his command. The stars do not wander, nor do the seasons falter, for the order of creation is bound to his word." Enoch marveled. For the first time he saw that the heavens were not a place of idle splendor, but a living mechanism of divine order. Every light in the sky, every change of season, every cycle of time flowed from this heavenly command center. And yet, the wonder of the fourth heaven soon gave way to the sorrow of the fifth. As the angels bore him higher, Enoch entered a realm overshadowed by tragedy. Here he beheld a multitude of immense beings, angels, yet fallen. Their stature was vast. Their faces still bore traces of former glory, but their eyes were hollow with despair. These were the Grigori, the watchers who had once been appointed to guard mankind. But they abandoned their post, consumed by desire for human women. Their union brought forth giants who ravaged the earth, devouring its abundance, and turning mankind toward violence and bloodshed. Now, stripped of their authority, the Watchers wandered in desolation, their voices filled with lament. Enoch's heart ached at the sight. He recognized the irony. Those who were sent to protect had become destroyers. Those entrusted with wisdom had corrupted it into rebellion. The angels who lifted him whispered, "This is the cost of pride." Even those who dwell close to the throne are not beyond temptation. The Gregory chose desire over duty, and the world still bears the scars of their fall. The fallen pleaded with Enoch, begging him to intercede, to ask the Eternal for mercy. But their request was in vain. Justice had been decreed, and their fate sealed until the day of final judgment. Their wails echoed across the fifth heaven, a haunting reminder that divine gifts, once twisted, lead only to ruin. As Enoch was lifted beyond their cries, he shuddered. He had seen the storehouses of creation, the prison of the rebellious, the beauty of paradise, the torment of the wicked, the harmony of cosmic order, and now the sorrow of the fallen Watchers. Each heaven revealed another piece of the great tapestry of God's design. But above the Watcher's realm, Enoch glimpsed a blinding light, brighter than all he had yet seen. The angels told him, "Prepare yourself, Son of Man, for beyond lies the throne of fire and the mysteries of the Most High." In the vast journey of Enoch's ascent, the visions grew more radiant and more terrifying with each passing heaven. What he had already witnessed, the prisons of rebellious angels, the delights of paradise, the fiery place of punishment, was enough to overwhelm any mortal mind. But the sixth through the 10th heavens would reveal mysteries beyond all imagination, visions that draw us closer to the very throne of God Himself. And these visions are not just ancient records. They carry a message for us today about judgment, hope, and eternity. In the sixth heaven, Enoch was shown a vast order of angelic beings unlike the radiant choirs he had seen before. These were angels clothed not merely in light, but in garments of wisdom. Their faces bore the calm authority of those entrusted with knowledge that sustains the cosmos. Enoch records that they study the courses of the stars, the patterns of the seasons, and the laws that govern creation. It was here he learned that the universe is not random but deeply ordered, each constellation, each movement of the sun and moon woven together under divine command. These angels were also guardians of justice, writing down the deeds of humankind, keeping account until the appointed day when all will be revealed. Imagine the weight of this truth. Nothing in our lives is hidden, no act of kindness forgotten, no sin erased without repentance. For Enoch, this revelation was both a comfort and a warning. And for us, it asks a piercing question. If the stars themselves are faithfully watched and recorded, how much more are our own lives being measured? But the sixth heaven was not the final stop. His guides lifted him higher, into the seventh heaven, and here Enoch trembled as never before. He describes a great light that outshone all he had seen, a radiance that could not be compared with the sun or the moon. Around him were hosts of celestial beings, cherubim, seraphim, thrones, dominions, and incorporeal forces blazing with holy fire. Each one shone with countless eyes, wings unfurled, voices lifted in unending praise. Their song filled the heavens with the cry, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The heavens and the earth are full of His glory." The seventh heaven was not merely a place. It was the throne room of God's majesty, the dwelling of His closest attendants. Enoch fell to the ground, overwhelmed with terror and awe, until the angelic guides touched him and spoke again. "Take courage, Enoch, do not fear." This reassurance echoes through the ages to us as well. When confronted with the holiness of God, who among us does not tremble? Yet, through His mercy, we are invited to stand before Him. After beholding this indescribable vision, Enoch was carried further still to the 8th and 9th heavens. These were realms not of worship, but of cosmic order. The 8th heaven, called Musaloth, was the changer of seasons, the place from which the cycles of drought and rain, planting and harvest were governed. Here the great constellations found their station, 12 in all, circling the firmament as signs appointed from the beginning. The 9th heaven, known as Kuchavim, revealed the dwelling places of the stars themselves. From here, the lights that mark our nights and guide our journeys were ordered and sustained. For Enoch, a man of the ancient world without telescope or science, this revelation must have been staggering. He saw not only the visible stars, but the vast system of their governance. And for us, in an age where we peer into galaxies with modern instruments, Enoch's vision still humbles us. What we call physics and astronomy, he saw as the handiwork of divine wisdom upheld by angelic keepers. Science observes the mechanism, but faith reveals the meaning. Finally, Enoch was brought to the highest of all realms, the 10th heaven. Here words nearly fail. He was placed before the throne of the Most High, a throne not made with hands, surrounded by unnumbered hosts of angels in ceaseless praise. The glory of God filled the space with a brilliance that no mortal eyes could endure. Enoch fell upon his face, undone, and the Lord himself spoke to him, saying, "Take courage, Enoch. Arise and stand before my face into eternity." Imagine hearing those words spoken not to prophets of old, but to you. Would you stand, or would you crumble in fear? The archangel Michael then lifted Enoch and set him near the throne. And there, the Lord commanded the angel Pravuel to bring forth the heavenly books, the records of all generations, all deeds, all souls prepared from before the foundation of the world. These books were placed into Enoch's hands, and he was told to write. For 30 days and 30 nights he wrote without ceasing, recording the mysteries of heaven and earth, the destinies of nations, the paths of human souls. In the end, he produced 366 books, a testimony not only of divine secrets, but of the vast responsibility given to one man chosen by God. At that moment, Enoch himself was transformed. He looked upon his own form and saw that it was no longer mortal but radiant, clothed in glory like the angels themselves. The Lord had not only revealed mysteries to him, but had changed his very nature, preparing him for eternal service. Here we see a foreshadowing of the promise given to all the faithful, that mortality will be clothed with immortality and corruption with incorruption. What Enoch experienced in the 10th heaven is the destiny God holds for those who walk in righteousness. This vision ends not as a distant myth, but as a living challenge. Enoch stood before the throne because he walked faithfully with God. He recorded the deeds of men because the Lord required accountability. He was transformed because he endured in righteousness. For us, the lesson is clear. Our lives are not invisible, our choices are not forgotten, and our end is not without hope. The heavens testify that God is both just and merciful, both judge and redeemer. The question is whether we will walk the path that leads upward or ignore the call until it is too late. And so Enoch's ascent through the 10 heavens concludes with the ultimate revelation. The universe is not chaos but order, not silence but song, not void but glory. Beyond the stars, beyond the constellations, beyond the highest archangels, there is a throne. And upon that throne sits the Lord Almighty, inviting the faithful to stand before his face into eternity. Enoch's journey through the 10 heavens stands as one of the most profound revelations ever entrusted to a human being. From the first heaven, where he saw the storehouses of snow and rain, to the second, where fallen angels wept in chains, to the third, where paradise blossomed with the tree of life. Each step revealed both the mercy and the judgment of God. In the fourth and fifth heavens, he was shown the movements of the sun and moon, the singing hosts of angels, and the sorrow of the Gregory who abandoned their place. In the sixth and seventh, he beheld the angelic orders and the throne room blazing with unending worship. And at last, in the eighth, ninth, and 10th heavens, he saw the constellations, the mysteries of time, and the throne of the Almighty himself. No man had ever been taken so high, no eyes had ever seen so much, and yet this ancient testimony survives so that we might learn and remember. But what does it mean for us now? For Enoch, every vision was not just a spectacle, it was a message. The heavens were not revealed to him for curiosity's sake, but to warn and to strengthen faith. When he saw the angels recording human deeds, the message was that nothing in our lives escapes the divine gaze. When he witnessed paradise, he understood the eternal reward for those who endure in righteousness. When he trembled before the throne of God, he knew the holiness that no man can approach without grace. And when he was transformed into glory, it became a prophecy of what awaits the faithful when mortality is swallowed up by immortality. Even today, this ancient vision cuts into our modern lives. We live in an age that often forgets the unseen, that explains the stars with science but forgets the one who set them in place, that speaks of morality but denies judgment. Yet the Book of Enoch whispers across the ages, the heavens are not silent, and the end is not without meaning. If angels themselves are judged, will humankind escape accountability? If Enoch could walk with God in a corrupt generation, can we not do the same today? His story asks us, will we prepare our souls for eternity, or will we waste our short years on earth as if heaven does not exist? And there is another layer of mystery. Enoch's writings speak of secrets sealed away, of knowledge too great to reveal in full. Some scholars wonder if even more was shown to him than we now possess, if his 366 books held prophecies not yet uncovered. Could there be truths about the final days, the rise of nations, or the return of the Son of Man hidden in the words of this ancient prophet? We cannot know for certain, but we do know this. The God who revealed the heavens to Enoch is the same God who governs history even now. So we are left with a choice. Do we dismiss these visions as distant legends, or do we allow them to shape the way we live? Enoch's path is not just history, it is an invitation. To walk with God, to live with eyes lifted upward, to remember that beyond the chaos of the world there is a throne, and on that throne sits the Almighty. And one day, every soul will stand before him, just as Enoch did. If this journey through the 10 heavens has stirred something within you, do not let it fade. Let it challenge you, awaken you, and remind you that this life is not the end. And if you want to continue exploring these mysteries, join us in the next video, where we will uncover another hidden chapter of the ancient texts, a revelation that may change how you see not only the Bible, but the world itself. Until then, may the Lord strengthen your faith, open your eyes to the unseen, and guide your steps, so that when your time comes, you too may stand before his throne clothed in glory.